Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk Naples with Blair White Team. Joining us today is Ryan Bleggi, the one and only.
Thank you for having me.
That's right. That's right.
Welcome.
Ryan's actually our managing broker at the #1 office here in Southwest Florida for real estate, John Wood Properties, Christies International. So we're very excited to have him. He brings a plethora of knowledge, approximately 2 decades of knowledge in the real estate industry. What was it, in 2022, he was president of Naples Area Board of Realtors?
That is correct, yes, 2022.
Ooh.
I was something like the 72nd president.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's interesting, because Naples is just 100 years old.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So I'd like to dive right into it. What would you contribute a lot of your success to? So you're alum of Notre Dame, a lot of knowledge when it comes to accounting. I imagine that helped a lot when it comes to real estate and speaking with clients and transitioning into management.
Yeah, I think it was a good basis as far as kind of understanding general accounting principles and applying it to the brokerage. I did realize very quickly that one of the biggest things I learned at school studying accounting was I did not like accounting. So I've never really worked in accounting, but I do have a degree.
Nice. I find a lot of times, especially with the clients that we come in contact with, these transactions they're businesses a lot of times, especially with the price points that we deal with, and it's not just an emotional, but they look at it from a return on investment standpoint. So from the knowledge that I have when it comes to finances, it's definitely helped me a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the privilege of living in a beautiful place, but at the same time, many people are looking at the second, third, fourth homes and condos as something that it's an asset and they want it to appreciate.
Correct. No, I totally agree. I mean, a lot of times they're actually advised to go and buy real estate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's a tax write-off purpose, from an equity position, 1031 exchange, whatever the case may be. I mean, it's a huge wealth builder. And I've definitely been able to help a lot of clients. I know Jonathan has as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Matter of fact, you have one of your buddies that you're helping in the place right now, right?
Yeah. He's currently in the process of looking for a home and getting a pre-approval. So, it's always the fun part of the home, I guess the process of buying a home, that's always the fun part. So, and his house just hit the market yesterday. So,
Yeah, the place has been fairly popular. It seems like my newly driving 16-year-old daughter has a lot of friends in the place. So she's driving down there a lot.
Well, she probably likes the pool, so I don't know if you've ever been.
They do hang out at that pool a lot, yeah, according to Life 360. It looks like. I think that's where the pool is. I'm not sure.
Well, that area is just booming. I mean, right now they're working on expanding the roads. Further down east of Corkscrew, they're building, another 10,000 homes with a hotel and shops, and just like a whole bunch of things are happening there. So, 5 to 10 years, that place is going to be different.
Is most of that Verdana Village? I know there's a newly permitted one, but if you go down some of those side streets on the south side of Corkscrew and kind of get a look at the vastness of all the land there, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. They're, across from the place, they're also building a newer community. I think it'll be a 55-plus community. Verdana Village is great because we have that new Publix. It's been there for a little over a year now, which has helped because we would have to take a hike all the way down to the Publix off of Ben Hill and Corkscrew. Which could be like in 15 to 20, like 18-minute ride just to go to Publix. But things are changing. They also have that winery down the road as well, which is really cool.
I've been there once.
Yeah, so it's neat. There's a lot happening over there, so we're excited. And the place obviously is just like you said, it's a younger family community. So my buddy has his house for sale, and he's excited about it too, and he would love to stay there. So we're looking at properties in there as well. So
that's awesome.
Nice.
Well, he's sitting on about roughly 25 or 30% of equity from when he bought it brand new.
Yeah. That's the thing. When you with that new, because there are 2 phases. Because with the place, and so he's in phase 2. So his house is a little. It's 4 years old, so within that time, he's got pretty good equity. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that too, that, sometimes nearly 70-80% equity, maybe that's phase 1, that they had that.
yeah, because the prices were so. I mean, it was a steal, and the prices tripled almost. If you sold in 2 years ago, you probably made out pretty well selling your home. So I live there as well, so it's been. I mean, I've seen my property value go up really quick within the first year. I mean, I closed and I already had $100,000 in equity when I closed, the day I closed. So
That's always nice.
yeah, it is. So.
A lot of the new build communities are like that, though, just because, whether it's Pulte or, whomever, when they build these, mass amount of homes, obviously their build and their overhead is way less. They also have a ton of incentives.
Yeah,
But then when it goes to resell and just the, supply and demand, it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, when they opened up Verdana, I will say that it was tough because, like, if you're living at the place and you're trying to sell your property, you're trying to capture that buyer, but they're like, well, across the street, you can build a brand new house, and make it more your to your liking, customize it to how you want it, So that's always a tricky, when you have a newer development right across the street when you're trying to sell a property, So, but I think that's just the way it is anywhere. So
It is, but you also have like the roots,
Yeah.
and that's where the emotional, element comes into play.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
love
that's
having
true.
something that's already established instead of having somebody having construction right next door to you.
Yeah.
So that's the pros and the cons.
Oh yeah, because you could be. I mean, I remember when we were building our house, we had a good year and a half of construction while you're living there. So
Right.
that could be, I think within a year, I had to change my tire like 3 times. And
I was just going to say that. Did you have a lot of flat tires?
Yeah,
My wife
so-
was dropping people off down there, and I swear it was like every 3 months,
Yeah.
new tire.
invest in the tire insurance for sure if you're living in a new community. Definitely recommend that.
So Ryan, I have a question.
Sure.
When it comes to the current real estate market in Southwest Florida, obviously we had a huge boom during the pandemic. Right after March of 2020, it was like everybody and their mother and their grandmother wanted to, navigate down here for multiple reasons. And obviously we just went through inventory like no tomorrow. Now we're at the complete opposite end of that spectrum. Kind of elaborate on that a little bit, your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. As you mentioned, I've been doing this. I started January 2005, so a little over 20 years now. So this is my second kind of up and down cycle, and it's nice to have a little bit more perspective this time. But I think we experienced such rapid growth during that period. I mean, in a lot of cases, when you look at pre-COVID to mid-2022, the end of the second quarter of 2022 is typically considered to be about the high of our market. Most people were up nearly 100%. So since that time, we still are experiencing great population growth in Florida in general, but not in such mass as before that's going to create that demand that puts us at less than 1 month of inventory, which is why prices were driven up so much.
Right.
Now we're floating somewhere around it's hard to tell because some property has been taken off the market for the summer, but probably like in the 13 and a half months of inventory. So just in the matter of 3 years, that's a pretty big swing. 13 months of inventory definitely favors buyers, but it depends a lot on the community. Some communities only have 4 months of inventory, so they're going to be less exposed to a lot of price reductions. Some have more than 13. So, it's really community specific, but it's not always easy to explain succinctly and clearly to sellers what's going on in the market. The fact that it's not a good or bad thing, it's just the market. It's a fluid animal that we are bringing something into. If you think about it kind of in terms of buying or selling a stock, it's not like you're giving the stock away.
Right.
It's just that's what someone's willing to pay for it at this point in time. So, sellers just really have to make a choice. Why are they selling? Kind of revert back to what's the ultimate goal? Is there a greater purpose? Are they moving away to be closer to grandkids? Do they want a bigger house? There's a flip side to that where it's perfectly logical to think that if the market goes up by 100% in 2 years, that there's going to be some sort of adjustment after that. Now, I don't know exactly what that adjustment will turn out to be. Probably nobody knows until, it's kind of like we don't know what the top or the bottom is until we pass it.
Right.
So it's, just throwing out a number, it's perfectly logical to think that we might adjust 30%. Sellers or buyers are seeing a lot of price reductions out there. They're seeing more options on the market. So sometimes that doesn't lead to the sense of urgency in buying. And a lot of buyers are just kind of sitting and waiting. But the sellers that are preparing their property for sale, keeping it updated, not having deferred maintenance, making sure it's in tune with the latest trends, and pricing it properly, we're getting those properties sold very quickly.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
What would you contribute to probably the biggest dilemma with the current, market in just Naples itself? Let's specifically speak about Naples.
So I would say that the toughest thing that we're having a struggle with right now are the properties that we brought to market in the fourth quarter of 2024. And that was before we had enough data, before we knew where the market was trending. And when you get into a market that's declining and adjusting, it's very important to stay ahead of it. If you
Totally.
trail behind it and you do small price reductions, you're going to end up netting less money in the end. And, some people, they're stubborn or, use whatever word you want. But if you trail behind and just kind of hold firm and your house is not selling, then a pretty realistic expectation is that it's not going to sell.
Right.
So, the ones that are hitting the market and they're placed properly within that market, you can feel it within a week or two. You know
can.
it's going to
You
sell.
do know.
You really do feel it.
I mean, within the first 2 weeks, and I can always tell whether or not this property is going to sell. And that's when you have to have a very transparent, heart-to-heart conversation, with your client, and just let them know, this is what the market is telling us. This is the one element that has no biased opinion whatsoever at all. It's nothing but pure data. I think a lot of times, what I would contribute is just being misguided, by agents. I think a lot of agents work out of fear. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but they'll tell somebody exactly what they want to hear in order to get a listing, thinking that they'll either adjust their price or maybe they'll get lucky, whatever the case may be. And it just really not only does that particular owner a disjustice, but it does the whole community a disjustice. Because sales is very simple. It's supply and demand. And if you have a ton of supply and little demand because the supply is overpriced, it devalues.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the best thing that you can do as an agent is provide honest advice, have data to back it up, be looking at the competition, principle of substitution, what can they buy other than your property. There are a lot of sellers out there that are not big fans of mine because I come in and I tell them exactly what I think. And, it's startling at first because maybe they're not getting that advice and, they're kind of under a different impression. But, I feel that that's our job. Whether you like me or not at the end of the meeting, that's fine. I'll always deliver it politely. But at the same time, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Right. No, I mean, you have to be direct. I mean, to, tiptoe around something, especially when it's such a large dollar amount. I mean, I'll kind of go back to what we were originally talking about. For most of our clients, this is a business transaction. This is not their primary residence for most of the people that live down here. And just letting them know that here's the deal. If you want to sell your property, not only do you have to do all of this in order to get it absolutely perfect because of the market that we're currently in, but we have to price it right.
Yep.
And the market's going to tell us whether or not we're priced right. But based upon the data that we have right now, this is what we're going to sell. And that's like another thing with today's technology. There is so much information online that the consumer knows what they should buy this property for. And
Yeah.
a lot of times if it's priced right, it sells just like that.
Yep.
They're
Yeah.
pretty savvy.
There's
They're very
there's a
savvy.
lot of
Yeah,
buyers
absolutely
that
right.
are out there. They've never had more data. They've never had more valuation models out there that they can use to do their own research. A lot of times buyers know about new listings even before agents do. You know, it's word of mouth. They get an alert right away on their phone when something comes on the market. So they usually, I think there's two things that are going to motivate them to act from a seller's perspective. It's that's too good of a deal to pass up, or someone else is going to buy it and the fear of missing out kicks in. Now, I'm not talking about giving away homes. You know, I hear these phrases a lot, and it's hard to hear because my exposure is so wide, and I kind of have like a macro view of everything. But you know, I hear that a lot. I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to fire sale it. And when you step back, it's kind of like, okay, well, you bought this property for $500, let's say, in 2019. Maybe it went up to $1,400,000 in 2022, and now you're looking at $900,000 for it. So you have a $400,000 profit in 6 years. Like, that's not exactly giving it away, in my opinion. You know, like if you do like an appreciation model of pick a number 5 to 8% year over year, you're still well exceeding that.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
you know, you hit it spot on. You still have to take care of all that deferred maintenance, and you can't just add it to the price as well. You know, sometimes you can, or at least a majority of it, but at the same time, that buyers don't want to do the work themselves these days because it's hard to get contractors in. They might not be from here locally. They don't know who to call.
Right.
You know, that's where we come in.
That's
is
right.
providing those connections and people you can rely on and trust. And a lot of times sellers will look at it as, well, no, you know, I updated my kitchen 15 years ago. That I don't want to go through that again. Well, what do you think the buyer thinks?
Correct. You're absolutely right. You know, and they and the
Yeah.
price is adjusted for that.
Right.
And their offer is adjusted for that as well.
Right. So not only do you have to update it, but you know, you might have to eat the cost of updating it too. But most people are in a great equity position, so you know, we just have to give it to them how we see it.
Gotcha. So let's kind of put the shoes on the other foot real quick. So if you were a seller, knowing what you know in all your years in this business, what are some of the main questions that you would ask an agent? And what would you hope to hear?
Well, I think I would want to get it. Number one, I would want to get a feel for the agent's work ethic, their personality, to make sure that that's conducive. How they communicate, how often they communicate. Do they communicate when they say they're going to? The number one seller complaint for the history of time in real estate is, lack of communication.
Right.
Communication pretty much solves all problems. And even if you don't have anything to update the seller with because there are no showings and nobody called you, that's still an update, and that's actually one of the best updates
Correct.
you can give, because that means that things are not working the way that you're doing it.
You're setting expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we need to, make some sort of adjustment. And it's not necessarily, a lot of agents, I think, take responsibility for the market. But, if we tell a seller a price that we think it is and it's wrong, sure, that's our fault. And, let's own up to it and adjust. But I think a lot of agents, take responsibility for the market, like, oh, I'm sorry, you have to list your house for 1.2 now rather than 1.5, but it is what it is. And if you want to sell, and well, why are you selling, then this is what we have to navigate. So I think that's a big part of it, is seeing how they work, what their work ethic is. Are they full-time agents? How well do they know the community? Are they ingrained in the community? How many homes have they sold? There's a lot of, inside knowledge out there. I can tell you that my wife and her friends, maybe not so much my wife, but a lot of her friends, because my wife doesn't really like talking about real estate all that much.
Well, that's what boundaries come into play as well. So.
Maybe because she hears me all the time, but
She's over it.
yeah. But, just being plugged into that world is a big thing, because most of the time they know what property is coming on the market before anyone else does.
Correct.
Because, they're really ingrained. And then I think, what are they going to do to market it? Are they just going to list it in the MLS and hope someone else sells it? Because I think that's the majority of agents, what they do. Unfortunately, maybe they don't know what to do. Are they using current technology like short video clips and reels and teasers? And, it's not important these days to have a 5-minute video of a walkthrough through a house. I mean, I don't know about any of you guys, but I can make it like 10 seconds through that video. I need quick, I need teasers, and
It's all about the attention
either
span,
looks
yeah.
interesting or doesn't, So I think just making sure they're getting the maximum number of eyes on it, which is going to lead to the maximum number of showings and offers and the highest price.
It's a numbers game.
It's actually pretty basic.
It is basic.
What we do, sure, it's a tough business. There's a lot of realtors, a lot of sales associates that are not realtors in Florida, and you just have to make sure it's in front of everyone. And like you said, with buyers, they're so educated. Everyone knows the property's for sale.
Correct.
It's sometimes after a while, it's not a matter of the marketing; it's a matter of an adjustment.
I totally agree. I'll say one of the things that, because I own real estate outside of just Naples as well, and dealing with agents from another state is eye-opening. Like, it's really, because I get accustomed to my work ethic and what I expect and what I give my clients. Not saying that I'm, absolutely 100%, perfect in what I do. I try my best to be. But when you start expecting that same level of service, from somebody else, it's sad, which is, I like to kind of go into something else really quick. I did some numbers and I shared these with you about the number of agents.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
I actually have a
crazy.
little correction for you.
Oh,
on
good.
that,
So
too.
why don't you, please. Because I know this is all you do is dive into numbers every single day. So
I
why don't you
do,
talk to
yeah.
us
I'm
about-
a big spreadsheet guy.
All right.
I'm one. That's another thing. You need to know how people make decisions, be able to identify personality types, because I'm definitely a person that can't make a decision without a spreadsheet. So if you don't give me all the data, I'm
Yeah.
lost.
Where was he close though with the numbers?
Yeah, he was. So, with regard to the licensed agents, that's actually realtors. So members of the National Association of Realtors. The number of licensees in Florida is double that number.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is that double number so everybody can know?
Yeah, like it's almost 500,000.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
it's about so like 440,000.
Yeah.
I haven't looked
That's
at
wild.
the reports from Florida Realtors since I'm retired from my presidential duties at the board, but yeah, at that time I think we were up to 250,000 realtors
Gotcha.
in Florida, and there's usually about double the licensees out
Gotcha.
there.
So out of all of those individuals, let's talk to me about, and let's tell everybody how many are full-time, how many are part-time, how many of them are actually doing the majority of business, and what the majority actually means.
Yeah, so whether they're full-time or part-time, it's hard to tell. That's a metric that maybe we don't have great data on. But, you talk about the 80-20 rule in a lot of things. I think ours is probably a little more 90-10 in our market because it is very hard to break into. So I would say 10% of the agents are doing 90% of the business,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's pretty wild when you think about that.
Yeah.
It is.
So when you're
yeah.
interviewing an agent, the likelihood of picking the right agent drastically goes down.
Yeah, I think that's certainly, going back to your other question, something that sellers should be asking is, how many homes have you sold this year? And show them to me.
Correct. Right. Yeah, show them to me.
Don't take their word for it.
Yeah, action's
I hate
huge.
to be a pessimist, but
No, not at all, because you'll have a lot of, because there's a lot of savvy individuals out there on both sides. So somebody that can come and always say the bigger the presentation, the more the fluff. There's show me, don't talk to me. Show me what you can do. By your past sales, by your reviews. People don't like to leave reviews, but when you see a lot of really good reviews on one individual or one particular company,
It says a lot.
it says a ton. And like, for example, John Wood Properties, 1958, we've been family owned, since day one. And how many years have we been the number one brokerage now?
quite a few. I don't know that exact number, but
It's 6+. I know that
Yeah.
for a fact. But and not just by a little bit. Like, we beat our competition by, I think it was over 1.5 billion last year.
yeah, that sounds about right. Somewhere in that ballpark.
But like, you guys, the wizards behind the curtain that actually, brings on agents and allows them to, hang their hat with John R. Wood, has a lot to do with that. So you guys are interviewing each one of these agents so that they can represent John R. Wood Properties the best of their ability.
Yeah, prior to my role in John R. Wood, I was selling.
Top agent for 12 years?
I don't know about top, but
Humble.
various levels of up and down, because I didn't. I mean, to be quite honest, I didn't really have anybody showing me the ropes or telling me what to do. So what I did was ingrain myself near people that were successful and just listened
Yeah.
a lot. So a lot of my learning has just been on the street and listening to what various people do and trying to apply it and think about a different angle. But yeah, when I first started, I was maybe a little more optimistic and wanted to give people a shot because what they said sounded great. But at this point, kind of my rough criteria is you have to do 5 deals here locally, even if you're a mega agent in another area, before we consider bringing you on, because it's not easy, and it looks easy as you step back and look
Right.
at it. And a lot of times people just kind of give up before they get there.
Right.
And I think it takes a solid 10 years almost to really start peaking in this industry, and certainly 2 to 3 to
Right.
get rolling.
Yeah. You definitely have to build that foundation.
Yeah.
Foundation, in my opinion, would be staying hyper-focused on a particular area.
Absolutely.
Not trying to say that you're a master of all of Collier County, which I don't think a lot of people realize just how large Collier County is. But staying focused on just a couple of different, developments.
Yeah.
Like literally, like really narrowing it down to like that and becoming an expert in that particular community.
And that's hard to do when you're starting out,
It
because
is.
you eat what you kill, and it's hard to turn down opportunity.
Yeah.
But sometimes that distraction takes you away, and then you didn't focus on your core for 4 months, and then who knows? We don't get paid until the closing table, so we have to make sure the job gets done.
I think a lot of times sellers don't realize how much marketing dollars, forget time, just marketing dollars go into each one of these listings. And also the grunt work and being able to sit there and actually talk to, an owner and say, hey, look, I know you think your home's perfect, but the reality of it is that it's going to need $300,000 to $400,000 worth of work in order to get it, shining in its best light. And those are very common conversations that I have with clients. I work very
And
similar.
they're not easy.
They're not
Yeah.
easy, and but the deal is that you end up selling the listings that you get because you and the owner are on the same page. Like your business model has to align. When I go and I speak with, a potential, client, I'm interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me. And I let that be known a lot of times.
You
know?
should.
Right.
I think that's important because, I'd hate to speak for the masses, but you should be thinking about it as, do I want to take this opportunity? Because I have to make sure that we're set up for success and not for failure.
Correct. Because there's nothing worse than having a property overpriced, because we've all done it, overpriced, and just sitting there, you get a bad rap. The owner is continuously, asking, why is it not selling? Why is it not selling? And, you shouldn't have to make excuses.
Yeah, if you can anticipate that ahead of time, which I know you're very good at, getting your listing sold, that's really where the knowledge and doing a lot of deals comes in handy is what the hurdles are going to be as soon as you walk into the home, typically. And I found that the magic question is, do I have your permission to be honest with you?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. It's funny.
I forget who taught that to me.
What is it that I say to a lot of clients? Listen, you're not going to like everything I have to say, but I can 100% assure you that what I tell you is going to be for your best interest and for mine, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I'm going to treat your money just like it's mine.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to set it up is, thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, and this is kind of what I had in mind and what I'd like to run through, and at the end of that you are going to decide, and I'm going to decide whether we should work together to sell your home.
Yeah,
and,
definitely has to be a mutual agreement.
It should be, because we're not, if we just go along with everything, we're doing them a disservice. So.
We are. I totally agree. So going back to that 90-10, 10% of agents here in Naples, what would you consider a high volume agent? That 10%, how many deals, transactions are they doing per year? In your professional opinion.
So I think that varies widely based on what your average sales price is. Being that we do live in a pricey market, some agents can do a couple of deals and maybe it's $20 million, and that's a pretty good living. Others are, cranking out 20 deals a year at, an above average sales price, and again, very good living. But I kind of like the one transaction a month threshold is kind of, I wouldn't say that's the top 10% necessarily, but maybe that's the top 20%.
That's consistent agent.
Exactly.
Right.
Somebody, you can tell that you're working day in and day out if you're doing about one deal a month.
Correct.
And
know what plays in that.
Exactly, yeah. Hopefully you're taking, you're winning one listing opportunity a month as well, and hopefully more than that.
Right. No, I would agree. I would totally agree with that. So there's been a lot of talk on the news about this no property tax.
Yeah.
Exciting.
I'm not sure exactly what to make
exciting?
of that.
Right. So I'd like to hear your opinion.
Well, it's been a while since I've looked at the budget for the state of Florida, but I can tell you back when I was heavily involved with the board, we would have meetings with the governor and various members of the House and Senate for Florida, so we kind of had that information fed to us. And at that time, I want to say that the budget for Florida was like $120 billion, somewhere around there, and we typically do run a surplus, which is great. So when you think about what that chunk of money is that represents the property taxes, it's pretty significant. So I guess the thoughts are possibly replacing it with sales tax, or I don't know, increased tourist tax.
Has to come from somewhere.
I would hope.
Right.
Yeah, I have a hard time digging too deep into things when they're right at the beginning stages, because I feel like there's so many different angles going. But if they can pull it off in a way that doesn't have a negative effect on some mass part of our society, then I guess it would certainly help our market.
It would definitely help the market, in our opinion. But it's also only for primary residence is what is being, pushed towards.
Right.
So not to be, confused or, misdirected to a lot of people. And the main reason is because we have, we do have an older population, and some of these people, live here full time, and these homes have increased in value drastically. And people don't realize this, but it's not uncommon to have a property tax bill of anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000.
Sure.
When we bought this home for $80,000, back in the, early '80s.
Yeah. Yeah, compared to a lot of states, especially the Northeast, where we're seeing a definite increase in people relocating from that area, our millage rate average in Collier is maybe 1 or 1.1, which
Right.
basically works out to like 1%. That's very low
It is
compared
low.
to the Northeast. I want to say they're more in like the 3-4%, and even some parts of the Midwest. So our property values are higher. We have some great savings in the Save Our Homes exemption that helps to protect those people. But that could have a very dramatic effect on an aging population that, is living longer, and you need to have a lot of money to retire these days, it seems like.
We do need to have a lot of money. And we're going through a huge transition in wealth as well.
Yeah.
I mean, huge. So there's a lot of younger individuals that are inheriting a lot of money. They're getting guidance, from their financial advisors, their accountants on what to do. And, if that's passed, in my opinion, initially, it would be a huge game changer. I mean, there's going to be a flood of people, buying properties, a flood. Because if we go back to the pandemic, we had the trifecta. You have no state income tax in Florida. You have 300 plus days of sunshine. And also during that time, we had very low interest rates. So right now we're at the complete opposite end of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a rate around 3%. And now we're at, 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
So people that are financing properties on a, $500,000 home, that's,
Yeah, it's going to
your payment's
cost
double
them
instead,
twice as much
Right.
almost. Yeah, and who knows where interest rates are going to go. I try and stay away from predicting the future, but I mean, when you look at a historical graph of like the last 80 years of interest rates, where we are right now is pretty good still. I hope we see those 3% rates again, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it. I don't know. I mean, again, what do I know?
we definitely don't have crystal balls. If we did, I still wouldn't be selling real estate. I can produce that as
Yeah,
much
right.
as I love it. But so, what would you say is probably some of the biggest mistakes a potential seller makes when speaking with an agent, making a decision to go with that particular agent, and then having their home sit on the market, quite frankly, and not selling, and they're scratching their head like, it's just a bad time to sell.
Yeah.
Because we see the complete opposite end. Like if we take a listing, if everything is done, accurately, it sells fast.
Yeah, I go on listing appointments with agents sometimes, and I think when sellers are hyper-focused on what they're going to pay in commission right up front, if that's one of the first questions you're asking, I don't know that that's the right approach. Granted, I'm vested in commission, and that's how we make a living.
Right.
So obviously we want to make money as well and be successful, but what's more important is how quickly your home is sold so you can go accomplish the goal that you set out to do when you sold your home, and that you net the most amount of money at the end through superior marketing, negotiation, the least amount of disruption to your life as possible.
Cost of ownership.
Absolutely, yeah. If you're going to sit on it for a year, especially with some of these condos where condo fees just keep going up because of the master insurance policies on the building. And from everything I'm reading, we have had a couple of new insurers enter the market in Florida, which is good. But I don't think those master policies on condos are going down anytime soon. I think this is the new norm.
Right.
So, I mean, you could sit on a property and it could be $50,000, $70,000 in carrying costs with no mortgage or no financing. So, and one thing I noticed, and I encourage our agents to think about, is we forget we're in and out of this every day. We
Right.
forget what a disruption it is to your life to sell your home, especially if it's your primary residence, because you have to keep it perfect at all times. You have to be ready on short notice to get out of the house and go
Stinks.
go do something. Yeah, that, I mean,
Especially with the family and
Right.
pets,
yeah, I mean, I haven't sold a house in a while, but I can only imagine. I mean, my kids and my wife would be like, they'd be complaining, we don't want to leave, but it's like, you're trying to sell your home, you have to make it available for people to see.
Right. And that's where the agent has to have a level of emotional intelligence and know how to, make a client understand a client's, needs, wants, and set certain expectations.
Right, and you have to do it ahead of time, for sure. And, you have to acknowledge that, hey, there's going to be a little pain in this, but that's my job, is to make it the least amount of pain possible. I think another mistake that a lot of sellers are making is they want to try a certain price for a while, and a lot of agents out there are going along with that and not being strong enough on the front end and kind of leaving it as, okay, well, we'll have a conversation in a month, and we'll address if we don't have a certain number of showings or an offer or some sort of metric to base it on, we'll have a conversation at that time. I can tell you more often than not, the proper adjustment is not made 1 month later. So you have to hit the price properly at the beginning. There should be no tester period.
Right.
I mean, forget about that. It's not going to work. There's too many options out there. Buyers have many options with 13 months of supply out there. They don't have to buy your house. They can go buy probably 10 other houses in the community. The most eyes are going to be on your property right away in the first 2 weeks. So that's your time to shine. That's when all the phones are buzzing with alerts, new listing. That's when people are talking in the neighborhood. That's when people within the neighborhood pick up their phone and call their friend who is nearing retirement and is thinking about moving to Florida. All of this is happening unbeknownst to us, but that's what happens when something hits the mark and is exciting.
And, I totally agree. So, just some final thoughts and wrapping up. In your professional opinion, because you watch over how many agents approximately?
Oh, I would say about 150.
150.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give the masses when it comes to just running your business as an agent?
When you say the masses, agents, sellers,
No,
buyers, agents?
Yeah.
So I think you have to, first of all, have a plan. You should be planning 1 year in advance. So this is the marketing that I'm going to be doing over the next 12 months for personal branding. This is the marketing that I'm going to be doing over the next 12 months to specifically get listings. This is the marketing I'm going to be doing to specifically sell listings. And it should be, in a perfect world, geared towards some sort of specific niche within the market, whether it's a specific neighborhood or part of town or lifestyle choice like pickleball or golf or tennis, and make sure that you have the proper budget allocated to accomplish those goals and stick to it. And if you can, put it on autopilot, hire somebody to take care of it, because you're not making money if you're sitting there creating a postcard. You're making money being out there and being in front of buyers and sellers, and you really have to commit to a plan ahead of time. And have some cushion, because you never know. It takes a little bit to get up and running in this business. There are a lot of ups and downs. Sometimes you just hit like a weird spell of rough deals every once in a while, that maybe you have a couple that fall apart. And I can tell you that when I was selling, I mean, there's some bad nights you have when you've worked for 6 months on something and it falls apart, and you're just kind of like, oh.
Right. It's mentally challenging.
It really hurts.
Yeah. No, I think we all can. We've all been in that seat for certain. But that's where strong agents push through, and that also really comes with consistency. Once again, if I was a seller and I'm asking certain questions, to my potential listing agent, their productivity literally speaks, no pun intended, but volume.
Yeah.
And actions always speak louder than words. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think, and it's kind of obvious, but at the same time, agents need to be studying the market every day, quite honestly.
Yes.
The first thing you should do when you wake up is look at what happened yesterday, see what new properties are on the market, go and look at them so you can talk in real time, in detail. You should be looking at all new listings around your current listings, so you know exactly what the competition's doing. So when you're showing your place and you're overhearing things, you can, navigate on the fly with real-time details. That's really important. And to also just have like a general, very concise way of explaining what's going on in the market in a neutral way, so that we can be the best asset we can to our customers.
That's it.
I think that's how we met. I think Naples Reserve, one of my properties there, and you showed up just to check it out. And I think, that was the first time we met in person.
You're right.
Yeah. You pulled in and you're checking out my listing, and because you also had one listed there as well. So
yeah, he wanted to sell his before you sold
That's
yours.
right, exactly. What's my competition doing?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And here we are.
Yep.
Well, awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, yeah.
We really
Pleasure.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks.
I really believe this is a good episode, and a lot of people are going to get a ton of information, valuable information that, they can, take to the bank, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it was my pleasure. I love having a microphone, so.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again for watching our episode. If you ever need anything whatsoever at all when it comes to your real estate needs, reach out to Blair White Team at 239-270-8614.
Thanks, Blair.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.